Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 9 of this interesting and uh, fast accelerating course on emotion and motivation. You probably have noticed by now that we're really getting into the heat and heart of all the emotions. We're really pretty much finishing up the negative class of emotions with disgust and contempt this week. And of course, and I threw in arrogance for good measure. And of course, we're working on transforming those, understanding them deeply, their roots, their causes, the ways they operate and they appear in society and in our own lives. Um, and of course, we're going to be concentrating again on transforming those, in this case, into appreciation, empathy, and gratitude. So this is not the New Age course. This is an actual practical psychological. We engage in a scientific analytical as well as creative and social, compassionate way of doing this. We don't simply just meditate upon something. We actually look into it and learn into it. So without further ado, let me jump onto a little bit of a summary of what we're going to be doing coming up. So in this class, we've gone for 8 weeks, and we have a few more weeks to go. We have something like 7 more weeks to go. So 7 or 8, actually, more weeks to go. So I thought I would just go ahead and summarize what we're going to be doing over these next few weeks. I sent out an email to our class that can be basically seen by anyone. It's just an important note on the schedule and the topics for the rest of the semester or the rest of the weeks here. From me, dated 3/14. Hi, Psych 77, 370ers. I'm hard at work getting our groups together. Remember, we're going to be working in groups to develop some of the group assignments here. It should be done by the end of this week. I have a big batch of work to grade from the past week and past assignments turned in from earlier in the week, so my spring break will be filled. And I'm getting this out early, so some of you can actually start on it a little earlier if you like. I'm attempting to put out the course for next week by tomorrow for those of you who have really tight schedules, and many want to get a jump on things. So again, I'm turning this in almost a week early. I'm going to be opening more time for you to work in your groups and final paper, part of this class structure. In general, here's how the rest of the semester is going to be going from March 27th through 5/8. Well, actually, it's March 20th if you include this week. So read through the end and please see full semester schedule. Don't stop at the URL links and previews for individual weeks. We can just review that right now. 3/20, that's a week coming up after spring break, starting in March 20th. We'll be exploring the emotional process behind developing prejudice. Discussion of disgust, contempt, and arrogance and prejudice will be linked to intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, interior experience, and external judgment. We'll be discussing the case of Daryl Davis, a black musician who made it his mission to reach into the emotional insides of Ku Klux Klan members and in an effort to reform their interior and exterior behavior, attitudes, and judgment. Again, he did not do it by trying to apply an intervention, but to understand where they're coming from and to use empathy and to share his talents and his perspectives. And he did change many of them. In fact, one account said he had 200 reformed former white supremacists. So that's pretty good. I have the links in here. You can look into that. I will also have it on the work template. On the 27th of March, we will unwind prejudice going the other way. Instead of what creates prejudice and really cranking it up and really looking how to transform that, we're going to help each other understand how to build social, emotional support and well-being around healthy, honoring relationships. This day will be also the PBS premiere of Ovarian Psychos, a film about a group of women of color in LA, Los Angeles, who ride bikes together in an effort to develop solidarity around issues like domestic abuse and sexism in their communities. Watch and comment on this film on the discussion board. If you're noticing, a lot of these classes are more now going toward project-based stuff, analysis, engaging our own lives and the lives of the people around us. We've really gotten a pretty good academic base, and I'm really going to start focusing more on the applied stuff and less on the academic. We need to use the academic, and if we never give ourselves a chance to actually use it and the time to use it, then we won't have done the right thing in this class. The 3rd of April will be a work week for you to catch up and breathe from all this rather intense emotional learning. I will go ahead and review the group assignments again. And here's where you do your emotional inventory. That's the first part of the group assignment, and the first steps of the assignment, where you discuss how each person can contribute to the project. So again, freeing up time to do this, I want to work that into the class. And through these weeks, I will be taking bits of the presentation development and asking you to share what you are coming up with in discussion. In other words, I'm actually going to use the discussion board to help you through the different parts of the group assignment. So again, you're not doubling up on the work. We're actually freeing up the time and making it part of the class evaluation for you to be self-consciously talking about your group process. Again, too many places keep throwing demands at you without actually providing the time and space to apply those demands. And I definitely make sure that happens in this class. On 410, there is a couple of the things in your first syllabus. How do people effectively set and pursue goals, which really relates mostly with your final paper project on goals and motivation, and how are emotion and motivation related to self-esteem? Also, again, related to motivation. But if you'll notice in your group presentation, I do talk about how to apply, for instance, some of the things we're coming up with in terms of exploring these different emotional classes to something like self-esteem. So we will delve back into the academic here by combining some of the academic materials 2 of the weeks into one. And then on 417, it's an additional work week where you can work on group presentations. Again, your outline should be done by now for the group presentation and a very clear plan of execution developed for the final product. It may even be done by this time. Getting ahead on this, not a bad idea. Questions, I'm looking at it as we're asking some refining questions, maybe some technical questions. Maybe you're thinking about, should we try this or that? These are a good time to ask these questions. And the final individual motivation and goals paper will be offered on the discussion board, and I will answer them. So if you have questions about that, we will have discussed and covered that as well. I will answer that in my Ask Dr. Zeus video of the week. Then we'll have a group presentations on the 24th of April. On the 1st of May, we'll review the final project. Really get that down. Again, I'm really beginning to limit the scope of that. I really want you to apply it. Instead of making a 10-page or more paper, I've made it a 5 to 10-page. So you can really make your thinking succinct and not overwhelm yourself with the amount of work. Again, quality better than quantity as far as I'm concerned. So that's what we're going to be doing there. All right, let's go ahead and move on now to this week's work and learning. And I've got a wonderful paper that I ended up writing up for you to really begin to explain the notion of transforming disgust, contempt, and arrogance, and prejudice into appreciation, empathy, gratitude, and solidarity. So let me go ahead and get that up. I'll pause this, get that up, and we will review it. So here we go. This is probably the week that I'm most excited to share with you. My background is in multicultural education and philosophy of education, and I've done a lot around workshops, diversity workshops, learning to not only deal with difference, but really begin to appreciate, embrace, and even celebrate difference. So when I got into this chapter on disgust, contempt, and arrogance in the Ekman book, he just does disgust and contempt, I saw a real opportunity to link this in with a much more a social skill and with an analytical skill, which would be more of a cooperative or compassionate skill of empathy and solidarity, but also an analytical skill to really do a good sort of dissection of our own prejudices, our own tendencies in this direction. The thing about disgust, contempt, and arrogance, they tend to be self-justifying. Again, the appraisal is built in. This person did this to me, so I need to call them out, put them down, and see myself as superior. Or maybe even, if you're really aggressive, use it as a reason to violate or abuse them, or in some other way insult them. So it's practical, and we'll go right into it. The main driving question is, how do you transform disgust, contempt, arrogance, and prejudice And I will be doing this this introductory video. I'll also have a readings video. If you don't happen to see it right away, it's because I'm still working on it. But I should get that out within the next day. If you view, I will also have an Ask Dr. Zeus video, weeks 8 and 9, available in probably a few more days. I still have to go through a lot of the grading, and that's where I really get people's questions, perspectives, and examples. So it's going to take me a while. Let's say that's probably going to come out on Monday in about 5 days. So now you can access and download the week 9 folder academic readings if you don't have them. If you're just watching this video for informational purposes, I will be going over those in a week 9 readings video separate from this. Again, read and engage Ekman's book, Chapter 8, Disgust and Contempt. View the YouTube video on Daryl Davis. I have the link right here. If you can, view the Accidental Courtesy, which is the full-length film, Daryl Davis, Race and America. It is listed on Netflix, apparently. And optional, you can view the videos in the week 9 folder. We've already got plenty of work, so I'm not expecting you to do that. It's only a few, very short minute videos if you want to look into those. The objectives for this week: develop a thorough applied knowledge of the nature of disgust, contempt, arrogance, and prejudice. Engage in transforming disgust, contempt, arrogance, and prejudice to appreciation, empathy, and gratitude. And I would also say solidarity. Distinguish between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation as applied to both prejudice and its pro-social alternatives. And understand and act upon the basic intrinsic motivation principles of autonomy, competence, and relatedness underlying self-determination theory. Here's the introduction. I've actually written a separate introduction here. This one is a good friend of mine, in fact, my sweetie, Regina Meredith, who interviews for Gaia TV, people from all kinds of interesting fields. She said to me, bow to no one, honor everyone. I think that's a great motto. It's a good opening to this introduction. And here it is. Try to imagine what would happen if isms like racism, sexism, and homophobia, what would happen to them if disgust, contempt, and arrogance suddenly evaporated from our emotional vocabulary. I think we could all agree these isms would not be able to exist in their present forms. The emotional expressions associated with prejudice seem to require a kind of disgust, contempt, or arrogance with someone or something that is different than you or unfamiliar to you. This despising attitude most often takes the form of apart, over, and against. Apart as in separating yourself emotionally, often in terms of rejection of the other person's value and values. Over as in placing your own value over the other person, or feeling oneself inherently superior to them. And finally, against, as in placing oneself in opposition, not just over, but opposed to the person to whom they are and what they represent. This is often what is happening when the news speaks of identity politics. I'm inherently better than you because I hold these beliefs and values, and yours are corrupt and yours are lower than mine, and they should be taken out. What would it look like? Oh, wait a minute here. What is it that produces contempt, disgust, and arrogance? How might these antisocial emotional tendencies be challenged in our day-to-day lives and even reversed into appreciation, empathy, and gratitude? How might this process of reversal be linked to our understanding of external attributes versus interior qualities and extrinsic motivation versus intrinsic motivation? We'll be discussing that in depth. What would it look like, here on this paragraph, and what emotional qualities and responses would be stimulated if we took an approach to one another that emphasized connected, with, and for? So these are kind of the opposite of the other ones. Connected as an emotional compassion in terms of accepting the other's inherent value instead of dismissing it and setting it apart from you, okay? With, in placing one's own value on an even level with another's. And finally, for, in placing oneself in basic solidarity for one another. That means basic support and working together to make things better for everyone, and especially the people involved. So What does this have to do with internal and external emotional factors, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation? Notice how it is hard to have disgust or contempt for the inside of a person. Okay, the reason for that? We don't really know what's going on there, so we tend to withhold judgment. Okay, even if we're repulsed by an act as horrific as pedophilia, our disgust comes from the exterior act and perhaps from that act being projected by us into the ostensibly abominable character of the person, of the pedophile. But even then, we know that people are more complex than that. We cannot figure exactly what's going on inside them. A lot of times we do that for our own sense of wanting to get away from it, to really to send a really big signal to ourselves how much we want to push that thing away from us. But in terms of dealing with that, especially if you are a social worker or a counselor of some sort, you will be talking with the pedophiles and people who do abusive or violent behavior. So it is very important to begin to get an understanding on the inside, the complexity of where this behavior comes from. You can't afford to stereotype them, even if their behavior very much turns you off. So part of what I'm trying to do here is to allow you, to give you the tools to do that, to be in a confident, emotionally confident and competent, that's the emotionally intelligent position. So no matter what this person is dealing with and no matter what they've done, you're able to speak to them person to person in a way that is respectful, in a way that, again, is connected with, that's equal, and for. None of us really wants a destructive and evil world to emerge, even people who do fairly bad things. So the idea here is to begin to address the factors that give rise to bad behaviors in the world, or bad habits or addictions or whatever they happen to be. So in this week's inquiry, we are going to investigate and draw a connection between internal and external emotional factors and responses. We will link this to a discussion of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and self-determination theory, SDT. We will examine a case study around racism in order to develop the emotional framework and tools to transform disgust, contempt, and arrogance to appreciation, empathy, and gratitude. So here we are. Okay, so now we offer insights and questions on the discussion board and respond to at least one fellow student. The question for discussion is, how does judgmentalism, right here, especially stereotyping and prejudice, interact with emotion? I'm going to again have you do a thought experiment here. This is not having you do an action, but it is having you do a reflective, a critical reflection, and a little bit of a creative turning of that critical reflection to apply it to your life today. So the first part of this thing I want you to do here is to describe an example when you express disgust, contempt, or strong negative judgment towards someone. How did it make you feel, and what effect did that expression have on your relationship with that person? Then, on a contrasting way, you're going to describe an example where you expressed appreciation, admiration, or some other strong positive judgment towards someone. How did it make you feel, and what effect did that expression have on your relationship with that person? Again, guys, this is, I think, 200 to 300 words. You can be very direct about this. You can number it. You can just tell me what it is. You can even copy this. So, oops, that's the dog in the background. Describe an example where you expressed appreciation, admiration, or some other strong positive judgment towards someone. Oh yeah, we've already said that one. So number 3, use the contrast between these two scenarios to discuss how you might go back and at least hold the space for a more constructive interaction with the person you judged negatively. Again, some situations are really, really kind of dramatic. They're not changed that much through this kind of exercise. Maybe it didn't have a whole lot to do with your input. The person was that unreasonable. So it might be good to pick an example in which you could have done something maybe slightly different to help the situation. But again, it's not necessarily to change it completely, is to hold the space. When I say hold the space, what I mean by that is, for instance, this is a very simple example, not allowing yourself to get so worked up by that person. Even if they did an outrageous action, to create more serenity and maybe a deeper understanding of what's motivating even really crazy behavior. So it doesn't necessarily mean what you have to do with them, and you've got to, be a bleeding heart for them, and maybe there's something going on, and I'm certainly not asking you to make excuses. We're not trying to create codependent enablers of bad and destructive behavior here. That's not the kind of empathy that's going to be healthy. That's unhealthy empathy. What we want is a healthy understanding of the situation that can limit a lot of the unhealthy energy that comes out of that, even if it's just you getting worked up. Understanding the situation enough to lower your level or lower your escalation and say, listen, we just don't agree on this, and we can't really talk about this. I'm not going to get worked up about it. We're not going to be changing each other's opinions on this. I get where you're coming from. You're saying this, this, and this, but I don't agree to it. It's as simple as that. That could be an example of going back into a negative situation. You're like, oh my God, that person's so unreasonable. And they were, okay, let's just say they were, it's still beginning to evaluate it, not getting on your high horse. Someone needs to tell them off and really begin to say in a very clear, calm, straightforward voice in a way that allows your energy to be as powerful as possible to work in this situation to its maximum benefit. That maximum might not be that high. So I'm not expecting the world to be necessarily changed. Oftentimes it's subtle. It's just you're being changed. You're learning not to get worked up about it. Being able to treat that person with respect, even if some kind of huge catharsis or resolution isn't made in this particular situation. And finally, I'd say number 4, cite one insight from Ekman, the chapter on disgust and contempt that help you understand negative judgment better. So here we are. You can, again, this is just a work thing, so you can paste if you want to keep track of have a diary of this class, you can just paste it into these work templates, and you'll have this whole folder you can go back to and refer. I think that's probably going to be quite helpful for you, especially if you're in a social work or a social services type of position. Okay, I'm going to have to get to the question of the week here. I realize I'm running low on disk space here, so I think I will save for a separate video my thing here below on transforming disgust, contempt, arrogance, and prejudice to appreciation, empathy, gratitude, and solidarity. We'll just handle this question. I'll save this as a video, and we'll do that one separately. So, drawing, here's a question of a week assignment. How might you increase intrinsic motivation in your work and school life? Again, this is meant to be quite practical. It's applying a lot of the things you're learning in the academic readings and also in my own discussions. And you're creatively kind of developing a way to analyze what you're doing so that you can transform your situations. It's similar to the discussion assignment, but it's different, and it has more to do with specifically being critical and creative in applying work and research. So here it is. Drawing from the end of my discussion below, where I discuss extrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivation, and self-development theory. Again, I will be discussing this in a separate video, as well as the folder 9 academic reading. There's this chapter on 5 on Reeve, and I will do a separate video on reading so you can see how to apply that. And again, cite each one once, please, just to get into practice. Strategize in each of the 3 indicated areas about how to reconfigure your work, life, or school life so that you could, to a greater extent, feel, and this is a direct quote, feel free, which means autonomy, feel effective, which means competence, and feel emotionally close, which they refer to as relatedness in the Reeve article on page 111. Do a short paragraph for each of the 3 areas. No need to introduce your assignment. Again, I want to make it very easy for you. And notice, I just did one citation here. That's all you need. You don't have to go around proving anything to me. We want something to be successful, useful, and directly applied. So here are the 4 things that I'm going to have you do. Please give some understanding of the challenges of your present situation, either in work life or school life. Those things that go against the principles for each area. Offer some change that you might make personally in each area to increase opportunity to feel free, effective, and emotionally close. Again, This whole idea is to understand the present challenges instead of throwing up your hand and go, these people are jerks, they'll never get it. I'm just going to have to keep my nose clean, my head down, and do the best I can. Again, that is assuming certain emotional situations are stable and that you have no influence on them. We're not going to accept that. Again, the changes may be smaller than you'd like, but they still can be effective, if nothing else, by changing the way you address the situation and the effect of anxiety or that stress or pressure on you. So this really helps to stabilize the situation, and I'm almost guaranteeing you that it will stabilize it for other people. Your anxiety level goes down, your calm, your steady presence, you realize the limitations and the opportunities in an environment, it almost inherently will affect other people. Maybe not to a great degree, but usually to at least a degree that you can see or feel. So you're offering some change that you might make personally in each area, right? To increase the opportunity for you to feel free, effective, and emotionally close. You're looking at things that you have control over. Then you're going to critically analyze how you might transform your judgments and treatments of others to allow them to feel free, effective, and emotionally close. So much of what happens here is someone gets frustrated, throws their emotional baggage onto someone else. That person gets frustrated and anxious and feels shaky, and starts blaming the other person and thinking, "Oh, what a jerk they are." Where the first person said, "I got this way because you did something jerky." So what we're trying to do is get beyond the melodrama and the drama of a situation in which everything is unreactive and unconscious, and really begin to do something with it. And finally, creatively generate possible ways you could work together with others to create the conditions for intrinsic motivation. Okay? And that's really what we're dealing with here. I will, in the next video, as you just saw, my disc is almost full, will discuss my paper down here that you can draw from in answering this question of the week. Until then, I thank you for watching, and we will get right back. Thanks. Bye.